Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
And your host on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. Today, we have a special guest joining us. XavTalks is here, or Talks. Which one would you prefer, or does it not matter?
So I go by many names: Zave Talk, Zave Arts, Zave whatever. You can just call me Xavier.
Perfect. So Xavier's here to join us as we're gonna talk about Korin's Tower. We actually just did a discussion with him about some, like, I don't know, I would say it's like onboarding things for Dragon Ball, like boneless panties and things like that. So we got that out of the way. So now we're ready to have a discussion about Korin's Tower. It's going to be one of those more like we had our last video where we're going to be talking about like bigger ideas and going through multiple episodes in one stream. Before we get started, all of our links don't work anymore because it's super old. So just, I don't know, search us up, I guess. Anyways,
If you're watching this, you know how to find us.
you know how to find us. I mean, you've already done it. Yeah, there you go. But please subscribe, hit the like button, all that garbage, literal garbage. But without further ado, I guess we can proceed. So, Xavier, do you want to introduce yourself a little and say what you've done in the past?
So my Zave Talks channel, it doesn't have many videos on it. I'm sort of trying to build a large amount of videos to sort of upload uh in a short time frame, so I can build the channel history. But it's essentially what my channel is about is just me talking about um usually Dragon Ball or Star Wars, and something really interesting that I find about a certain topic. And recently that has been the martial arts and mythological connections between uh Dragon Ball and Star Wars. And that's sort of what I'm building the channel on as of now.
Very cool, and we're happy to have someone who is very tuned into the mythological aspects of the martial arts in the story of Dragon Ball. We're glad to have someone on to talk to us, to chat with us about it. You all know Brock. I'm not giving him any time. Let's just get started. All right, so Korin's Tower. We're I think we're starting here because it's kind of the impetus for me personally, to realize that Dragon Ball was something bigger than what I had thought it was previously. Oops. I won't go through the whole story again, but there are specific parts in this that really prove that Goku is becoming the embodiment of the Logos on Earth, let's say. And so we start here with Korin's Tower. And just some preface before we proceed here. Goku had just beaten, well, Blue. Here's Blue. And he's fighting the Red Ribbon Army at the moment. Now, the Red Ribbon Army, we don't have to touch on I don't think he really fights too many soldiers here. He kind of does. We will have to talk a little bit about the Red Ribbon Army.
The Tao Pai Pai.
Yeah, but he's not.
Yeah, just fought Tao Pai Pai, and now he climbs Korin Tower.
Right. I was starting when he gets to the land of Korin. Tao Pai Pai hasn't actually come in yet. Like, he's got to fight Captain Yellow.
We do need to talk about the land of Korin first.
They do it different here.
Yeah, how is it? Yeah, go ahead.
So in the manga, Appa was just killed by Tao Pai Pai, and Goku loses to Tao Pai Pai
No, it's the same.
with the Dodonpa.
Yep,
Uh,
it's the same, but this is
oh, okay.
before Tao shows up, right? So he like meets Upa and Bora and all that, right?
Yeah.
So this may not happen in the manga. I don't know. Where Bora like crushes these Red Ribbon soldiers.
No, we don't have that at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, it
that's
gives.
sad.
I think it actually is something that's good because it gives a little more weight to Bora's death, especially because I mean, if you're not looking symbolically, then Bora is just another guy that Goku's met along the way, right? Not even a martial artist; he's just a strong guy. And with this addition, we get to see some of his virtues and how he's supposed to embody um, this fatherly tradition that we see him interact with Upa. But before that, I'll let Brock go ahead and tell us about the Red Ribbon Army, Brock.
I think the thing that's interesting the most, at least in regards to Korin's Tower and where we're starting out here, is Goku is on his way to a volcano here that has a Dragon Ball that's fallen into it, and the tiger, I can't remember his name, the basically the tiger general is trying to get that ball, and he basically just loses against Bora, I believe, whenever he and his guys are like, you know what, we're just going to take this ball from this area. They set in trying to get it, they make the volcano erupt in the anime, which is, I have a lot that I think about that, but we can kind of circle back on it. The main thing that matters is that the Red Ribbon Army has come into the land of Korin, and they're using technology to try to take this for themselves. And you have Bora here, who's basically just this. He's depicted as the traditional Native American look. I think part of that has to do with the West. The tiger being representative of the West, and then also this being a journey to the West. And it said in a screenshot we had just a minute ago, Goku is headed west to try to get this Dragon Ball specifically. And so they arrive at this place where there's this giant tower, and then a a man who lives off that land and his son that have a tent set up right at the base of that tower. That kicks off the problem here, and that's what the Red Ribbon Army is doing. Is they're using might and power to extract from the land something that they have not earned by living the right way. And that's the impetus for, I guess, the conflict whenever we arrive here, and how Bora is characterized as having a good character, in that he's defending this land, the land of Korin, right? And we don't know who Korin is at this point, but it's the land of Korin under this tower.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. This part is in the manga. I was at the wrong part.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say they really just have Bora show up and die, but I guess it isn't that isn't the case. So, yeah, and it gives some of that to Bora as well. I didn't know. Did you touch on the mechanical nature of the Red Ribbon Army and?
I mean, essentially, the way they trigger this volcano is they're trying to use technology to get this ball out, and it's almost as if it angers the land, right?
Mhm. Exactly,
Which is,
and that really embodies the Red Ribbon Army. I mean, if we think about, I mean, the last Red Ribbon Army commander, Black, let's say, he fights in a mechanical suit in his last moments, right? As well, it's like
mhm.
they really follow that uh, almost Empire. Speaking of Star Wars, almost Empire ethos. It's a little different.
It's interesting. A lot of the strength that the Red Ribbon Army displays early on is through an extension onto themselves rather than their own actions. So
Hmm.
they're using guns, they're using tanks, they're using planes and missiles,
Well,
and they're effective too.
How does Silver destroy the Quinto or destroy?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so to bring all that up, because this is very it's very Rebels Empire. It's very it's almost Tolkienian in its like stark contrast of this is the mechanical, unthinking, unfeeling like ethos of the Red Ribbon Army, and the not worship of nature, but the reverence in living in harmony, following the way to live with nature, and by doing so, the land of Korin is now a spiritual land.
That's the main thing. Is it's like it's a holy site. It's a sacred ground that they're on that is not being respected by the Red Ribbon Army.
Hmm.
So that's the setup of this situation. And then also something I like about how we're introduced to Bora and Upa is that, you know, the first thing we see Goku really doing in the story is he's out in the wilderness and he's self-sufficient and he's fishing and feeding himself, and we see that that's what Bora is doing is he's teaching Upa to do that as well. It's almost like we've gotten a window into Gohan and Goku before the story started, right?
Yeah, the earthly father, right? Uh, and that is we have some earthly fathers around, right? Like Ox King,
Hmm.
Gohan, and now Bora. And each time it's a different thing that Toriyama's saying here. And this is, I think you're right. I think I haven't really thought about it that way, but it is Goku kind of casing into his past almost.
Yeah, I think functionally what we're getting set up here is that Goku is now taking the responsibility of, well, taking up the mantle. He's going to have to take up the mantle of Bora as we get further here where Bora gets killed. And then Goku sees essentially himself in Upa, where it's like Upa needs, he was cut short of the same guidance that Goku got.
But we'll get there. We're
Yeah.
moving on far ahead. Um Zave, do you have anything you want to add here about the setup?
Um, it's it's cool that right before he's taken by the soldier, um he says I can't wait until I'm as strong as my father,
Mm.
and you know, like that sort of like sets up like his whole uh the the way that he like looks up to his father.
Yeah. It gives us a good insight to him and how he's a lot like Goku, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Also, notice which ball it is. This is not an accident. This is the 4-star ball.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And why and it has to be Bora that has it. He's an earthly father. And we've gone to say they've already made one wish, so they had to go find uh all the Dragon Balls again. And Goku only has one right now? No,
Yeah.
he's got like 3 or 4 in the bag.
But this one is really important too because
Yeah, this is
Goku
the
was
one he
calling
wanted.
this ball grandpa. He was like, that's my
Yeah.
grandpa.
Yes, and it is
Yeah,
supposed.
because he literally worshipped it as if it were his grandpa.
Right.
Yeah, and so he wanted to go out and find this. That's the whole impetus of this arc, is that he wanted to go out and find specifically the 4-star ball, and now he's found it in the sacred land of Korin with the earthly father Bora, with his
Searching
mirror
for the
image.
spirit of his earthly father.
Right, exactly. And where does it bring him? Right there. So, Blue comes back, and this is not in the manga, I don't imagine. Right?
It yeah, no, this is.
Okay. Yeah, you really got to tell us, because I mean, I'm not sure. A lot of it just seems integral to the story. I don't know how it couldn't be there.
You
Let's
know,
move on.
this part is.
So the notorious mercenary. What happens here? So Blue comes back and he has the radar, and the radar is significant because it is like a boon, um, gifted in that Bulma line from season 1. Right? It's able to discern where wisdom and enlightenment can be found in the world, and it comes down from her own invention, because she made the dragon radar, right, using the technological expertise taught to her by her father. And so it's a new thing that comes out of the chaos of the feminine that can then seek out what is meaningful. And so Blue brings that back, and Red, obviously not knowing anything, doesn't really care about it. Like, he's like, this isn't a big deal, whatever. But if you can fight Tao, you can live. And so Tao Pai Pai is an interesting cat. Oh, but this is the tail. We'll get to Tao a second. So while Goku's there, they talk about Korin Tower in the legend of Korin Tower, and it said that if a hero ever could reach the top, he would find a hermit that will offer him water, and he'll be stronger than ever, right? That is the tail. There he is. That's supposedly Korin. And of course, Toriyama's not going to do this just like this, though. And so Bora says he tried, but he couldn't. Goku wants to try. He also is told he can't take the Nimbus up there. Blue and Tao fight. And of course, Tao wins. He's the embodiment of malice, as far as we know in the story.
Doesn't he kill him by hitting him in the temple with his tongue?
Yes.
Yep.
Which is significant.
It's significant. Without going too deep into Blue's character, it is significant that that's the way specifically that he kills him. Because what Tao is like death. He kills not just your body, but who you are. And so this is a real way of just sort of like, this isn't just Tao beating, like in a martial sense, beating Blue in a fight. He is killing who Blue is.
Yeah.
It's like giving him such a tongue lashing that it literally destroys his ego.
And it is, yeah. He dies. There he goes. And he's never like seen again. Like, we never really talk about Blue again because his spirit has gone out of the world. And that's kind of the destructive nature of malice that we see that's going to be pitted up against our hero very shortly. And our hero hasn't actually encountered malice like this before. The Red Ribbon Army are a means, like they're a means to an end. They have their ethos, sure, but it is cold and calculating. It's dispassionate, right? It is trying to achieve that goal rather than being malice for its own sake, which is what he does for a living. And if you think about what that phrase means, does for a living, right? That is Tao. Tao is death. So he goes to fight Goku. He throws the pillar. I love this.
So the pillar is the beginning of, I think, what people miss about
The pillar's
Tao.
crazy.
Because, so Tao, it's a funny joke, right? Like throwing a pillar and then riding it. Everything to do with Tao Pai Pai from this point on is going to have to do with a point of a tower, a point and a direction. The way that he attacks, the way that he moves, what he does, what his story is about, all ties into the pillar.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind, like, the anchoring point of the story is arriving at Korin's sacred land and Korin's tower. And the way that Tao Pai Pai gets here is that he takes a pillar and he rides it sideways towards this vertical pillar.
And the directionality, yeah, not an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this whole arc is about pillars and towers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what they mean. So, Goku eats here, and anytime Goku eats, he's happy. And this is where he really observes is this that? Yeah. This is when Appa brings up the spear to get his father's approval, and he does. And then Goku's reaction to this, though, is what is significant here. Because now he's more eager to sharpen that spear and like,
yeah, this is a moment of enlightenment.
Yeah, this face right here.
Again, the spear, also keep in mind, is a pillar.
Yeah, the spear is a pillar. And it has a point, right? And we'll get in. I mean, it's obvious what's going to happen then. But yeah, this is when Goku's realizing the holy nature of the father-son relationship and how it shaped him, let's say. Yeah, here's Tao. So he comes in on the pillar, already basically attacking them with the pillar. And this is like, I don't know, this is probably one of the most pivotal scenes in Dragon Ball. Shapes Goku for the rest of forever.
I just love this shot of him standing on his pillar right next to Korin Tower. It's like
Yeah.
the thematic images, the symbols are just like so deliberately on screen to show what exactly is going on. So Tao shows up on a horizontal pillar that he rode like across the world, horizontally speaking, and then approaches them that way. So this horizontal pillar slams down on them while they're standing next to the vertical pillar. And he stands on it, and basically they're like, well, you know, what business would an assassin have in this place, this holy land, which is an unholy purpose essentially. If an assassin arrives riding a horizontal pillar at the vertical pillar sacred land,
Well,
it's
let's
only for
talk
one
about
purpose.
what that means for a second. So, the horizontal pillar being the earthly, right? And what
Right.
is the ultimate destiny of all things earthly but to die? And so,
Death.
yeah, and that's why Tao has this horizontal pillar. He's atop it, right? He strides atop it. He is the embodiment of death. But there's
Yeah,
another
and
pillar.
look at how he already has the high ground too.
Mhm.
Yeah, high ground's OP. But yeah, and then there's the other pillar that's vertical, and it's the spiritual, and it's something that Tao lacks, but they haven't realized it yet. I mean, it's set up that way, but being the embodiment of death, the embodiment of the earthly fathers fall subject to that. Are all fathers going to die? Yes, and that is why Bora has to die here.
Now, this is where the symbols all start falling into place, right? Because he can't defeat death. Ultimately, Bora can't defeat death, which comes for everybody on that physical plane. And so he's
He's
nothing compared to
powerless.
Tao
Yeah,
Pai Pai.
nothing. Yep.
So Tao Pai Pai kills him in the most synchronous way possible, which he pierces him with the spear. Now, if you look at Bora's design, he has a scar on his chest, which is an X or a cross, right? Which is what we're talking about right now, the horizontal line and the vertical line. It's
Mhm.
also what the Christian cross is. It's the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. That's what Jesus is supposed to represent as a mythological image, is that he's a physical incarnation of a spiritual idea. And the cross is essentially, at least in the Western myth, is the world tree. It's the tree upon which that physical representation of a mythological spiritual idea died. It's the tree, and the tree being the center of the world, the axis upon which everything turns. That's what the cross, the plus, the X marks the spot on the map. That intersection, that cross means that. And that's what Korin's Tower is functionally doing as well, as it's the axis mundi, being the world tree here in the center of the world. It's also why it's the 4-star ball specifically, which forms a cross out of the 4, that Goku finds here. So everything is all cross symbols right now as we've arrived at this pivotal moment in the story, which is when Goku has to take up the responsibility of the spiritual father, or the earthly father, so to speak, when Bora is killed this way.
Let's go on, because there's something I want to say there, because I think it's a little different than that. So this one's called A Battle, the Kamehameha versus the Donpa. So Goku, our hero, he is the embodiment of the Logos, but he is not yet able to defeat death. He gets pretty destroyed by death. He's still living in the earthly plane, right? He hasn't ascended. Even with his training and with Roshi, he didn't ascend to a spiritual plane or anything like that. Roshi's
He literally
training
can't even
was
grasp
all earthly. Yeah, he can't grasp it. And that's why things in Dragon Ball move fast. Like, that's why enemies move faster than other enemies. It's because they're ungraspable. It's not because, like, oh, their power level is so high, they're so fast because they have higher speed. It's like how the characters interact dictates how fast and how strong they are, basically.
Meaning that enemy might represent an idea that they can't comprehend or grasp.
Right. And when, like in Dragon Ball Z, when the Z fighters are fighting with like the Cybermen and it's going like really fast and Gohan can't see it, it's not because they're moving so fast, it's because Gohan can't comprehend a mode of being, the mode of being that the fighters are exhibiting. And so he can't see
The
it,
way that
right?
they're moving in the world, let's say.
Right, the way they're moving in the world. And so Goku gets completely trashed.
Yeah, the difference here between this and the manga is the moment that Upa's father gets killed,
Hmm.
Goku just charges at him, and then Tao Pai Pai just kicks him once, and he instantly hits the Korin's tower,
Oh,
Mm.
okay,
and
yeah.
then
Knocks
and
him
That
then
makes
straight into
and
sense.
it.
and then he goes straight for the Kamehameha.
That makes sense.
Also significant,
They
that's
had to
what he
fill some
does.
time.
That
It's the
specific
same.
move is the most important, that he hits him into the tower, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so Goku tries to use the Kamehameha wave, which separates chaos from order, right? It's supposed to defeat everything Goku comes up against, except it can't defeat Tao Pai Pai because death is not separable from order by naming it. You can't simply name that death exists and it disappears. And
So
so,
that's America.
oh, well, let's not get into that. Uh, but right, I mean, I mean, Brock, why do you do this to me? Anyways, so
I'm trolling. I know. I already know
You
what your
ruined
response
my
is.
clothes.
yeah, and so but the thing is with naming it, um it does lay Tao Pai Pai bare, like
Bear.
not naked,
Yeah.
but bare, sure.
It
And
reveals him.
so his
Yeah, in
response.
the
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, no, no. I was gonna say he says ruined my clothes, and then that's when he shoots him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're going with here. So I think Brock had something to say about the Dodonpa specifically because it all lines up.
Oh yeah. Well, it's another pillar, right? But this
Oh,
is
this
it
froze.
defeats
Hold on.
Goku for a reason, right? And it's something that you introduced me to with the story, which is that Goku has not met this kind of malice before. So the Dodonpa, he points his finger and he creates this horizontal pillar that hits somebody and kills them. And it hits Goku and it wipes him out. It doesn't kill him because he is protected, but it's a level of malice I think that Goku cannot comprehend.
Mhm.
It lays him unconscious because of it, because that pointing of the finger and what it represents, what he's doing is he's sort of in the same way that he used his tongue as that horizontal pillar to kill Blue. It's like, for all intents and purposes, he expects that this is going to kill Goku. You know, there's no reason in Tao Pai Pai's mind that the Dodonpa doesn't kill Goku,
Yeah, it
because it's
is
not the
the
same kind of use of words that the Kamehameha is. See, the Kamehameha, which we didn't talk about before, generally seems to be that it is speaking truth, right? So you use truth to separate order from chaos. You can differentiate things with truth by saying what is true, like what is real, revealing things. It's a revealing move. That's what the Kamehameha does, and that's also why Goku doesn't have to learn it. He can do it immediately because he's honest. He doesn't have any dishonesty in him.
correct.
But
It's also
but
why
this
it doesn't
attack
work
is not
against some
that.
enemies. It works against other enemies.
Yeah, you know, it's why it doesn't work on Tien.
Yeah.
But whenever this attack happens, this is not the same. This is a single finger pointed at his heart. And it's magic words that do something different. It's not about revealing a truth. It's about cutting through and damaging him, you know.
Right. Can your spirit
Being
withstand?
obscene and direct.
Yeah, in a sense it's basically cutting to the heart of it, right? It's
Yeah.
trying to kill him because that's what he represents as death. And so this move is not about revealing something that's going to sort things out. This is about saying something with your magic words that actually destroys. Um, and so what he does is he uses it on Goku and knocks Goku unconscious. And the only thing that protects Goku, of course, is the fact that he has the 4-star ball. Another symbol of the cross on his chest protecting him from being destroyed by that. And you see, it's the throwing of the spear, which is a horizontal pillar which pierces through Bora, and then a spiritual throwing of a spear at Goku. It's the same type of move. One of them's earthly and one of them's a bit more magical, right? And it's almost to say that the attack would have come at Upa, but Bora was protecting him, and Bora was in front of the spear and stopped it from killing Upa in the same way that
Mm-hmm.
Goku's spiritual father was standing in the way of the spiritual attack killing him.
Right. And it is the only thing, and that's what spiritual fathers have the capability of doing is postponing, prolonging. It's something that Roshi does with the moon as well, is
Mhm.
postponing and prolonging the malice such that the hero can become the hero, right? Um, and we see it all the time. I mean, think about Obi-Wan's sacrifice in A New Hope, right? What is that? That's so that he can hold off the malice of Vader to make sure that they're able to escape, so that Luke has the time to train, find Yoda, and become the hero that he's supposed to be.
which he does in Return of the Jedi.
Right. But not to get too into that. I'm just bringing that up as it's a universal story, right? And that's a universal power that that spiritual father figures have in multiple stories. Like think about Gandalf's sacrifice, right? Like that, it all and it's kind of it goes with that wise man trope, but I think that it goes further than that in a lot of these big stories. Um, and so Gohan here protects Goku through the 4-star ball, all that, and then we get to this scene, which is the one that. Oh, so yeah, Goku looks like he's done, and it's as close as he gets probably. And the Red Rune Art Soldier comes. He's too afraid to do it. Upa stops burying him. All this. I don't. Does this happen in the manga?
Which uh, I no, he just climbs the
He just wakes up and
tower.
climbs the tower. Okay, so he doesn't do this. Where he says,
So he
"Grandpa,
wakes
save me."
up, talks to Upa,
Okay,
and then climbs up the tower.
Yeah, this is probably the most important moment
in all of
in
Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball. It's just that moment of Goku staring at the ball, staring at the mound, looking at the
Mhm.
little tree growing or the little leaf growing on the twig sticking out of it, and realizing what he has to do.
Oh, the flashback. The flash. Goku wasn't even here for this. how could he possibly remember this? But no, here it is. We got to get the shot for sure. Because yeah, I mean this part here. This is when Goku becomes the hero of the story. Before
This
he's
this
the
part looks awesome in the manga. Here, I'll send it.
yeah, send it.
Oh, awesome. I see it here.
Yeah, he just wakes up. There's no red ribbon soldier. Yeah, Grandpa saved my life. Then he looks. Yeah, he does look at that though. But see, that's what it is.
And then he
Through
says, "All right, I'll gather the Dragon Balls and bring your dad back to life."
through
Yeah,
this,
that shot is an awesome shot at the very bottom.
but that's it. That's when he is accepting the ultimate responsibility of the hero and defeating death, right? Because that's what has to happen in a bunch of these stories. That is what happens. Um, and so he stares and he's motivated by the spirit of his own father, and he realizes that Bora and Gohan, well, Grandpa, but you know what I mean. Bora and Gohan are not one and the same, but they are. There's a super ordinance that Goku understands by staring at the ball and staring at the grave, and realizes that the spirit of the father must be redeemed, and that is his responsibility to do that. And that's what he realizes here, and that's why it's probably the most important part in Dragon Ball.
And then we can finally move on to the tower itself, right?
Oh yeah, there's a tower here as well. Um, and so, but that's exactly it. And so, what is the first thing that he has to do? He has to aim higher, right? The spirit of his father is saying, "You're not all you could be," and so he has to aim higher. And what's the highest thing he can find? Korin's tower. And so he's going to try and get to the highest place he can possibly be, and that is in the spiritual realm, right? And so he also takes his ball with him, obviously, and he leaves.
Yeah, he has to confront death, and it's not something that he's going to be able to do on this level because he is on the physical horizontal plane.
Hmm. And so he begins climbing the tower to ascend to a more spiritual plane where he realizes that the spirit of the father exists. And so he is seeking that out. And actually, at the very end of the Red Ribbon Saga, the very end of this collecting of the Dragon Balls, that's when he finally seeks out what, or gets what he's been seeking the whole time,
Hmm.
which is another great moment, you know, very pivotal moment in Dragon Ball. So climbs Korin's tower. Do we want to talk about the design of Korin's tower a little bit?
There's a couple of things about the design of Corn's Tower that's interesting. There are all of these bands along it that have these traditional, almost like Native American style um depictions, like a totem pole in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
There
has like fish, skulls, bowl.
It's an ancestral thing is the reason, I believe, is it's sort of, it represents this thread running all the way back to, your earliest ancestry, the wisdom that's been handed down, let's say, from the spirit of the father over and over and over and over.
Yes, and
Um,
that is why it repeats, I would say.
and then also some interesting lore about Korin's Tower. There's unofficial stuff that Toriyama has worked on where he's explicitly described Korin's Tower as being a tree and has talked about like
Mm-hmm.
Korin's Tower growing. Um, because I think it's fully intentional. He intended this to be the Axis Mundi world tree Yggdrasil of this story, right? So the
And
thing to
it
point
is
out,
that though. It's still, even after the lookout, it's still
yeah,
that.
that is what the lookout
Yeah.
is that
And then Yoibo just extends it all the way up to
Ah,
the heavens.
precisely.
but why is that? Where to get the Noivo? Why does it have to be the Noivo?
It's Goku's Buddha nature reaching the heavens.
I
In a sense, but it's inherited.
right. It
He
is
inherited it from his father.
from Gohan, right?
Yeah.
He was gifted
And
that. It is the ancestral. Um, it's the ancestral ability to be able to, if a person, and this happens like in the Lion King and stuff, if a person relies on the wisdom of their ancestors, the wisdom of their fathers, let's say, it can allow oneself to reach into the heavens, right? And find the spirit of the greatest father of all, Kami, right? In this story.
also, the Noibo is a known thing in this world. Whenever Goku fights Yamcha for the first time, Yamcha recognizes, he calls it
Mm-hmm.
um he calls it the pole that extends forever, which is essentially what I'm talking about with Korin's Tower, in that it extends back through ancestry all the way back to sort of the original wisdom handed down from father to son.
Yes.
And that's what Goku has with the Noibo, is this thing that was handed down to him that when he uses it in the story, if you pay attention, that is how he uses it. It's an extension of what was handed down to him through his, not, I don't mean literal ancestry, right? But what I mean is his inherited ancestry by being now brought into the tradition, the wisdom tradition of having this earthly father
Yeah.
that gave him the structure that he needed to be the hero, right?
And that
And
he
so that's why it
relies
extends
on
forever,
throughout the story, and what he eventually uses to get into the heavens, right? And
right? Which is
so,
a few degrees higher than this even.
yeah, this is world tree, but we're not at the top. Actually, I would say that the whole thing is that the Noibo makes the bridge between them, right? Because right now they're not connected, and that's the whole point. Is that Goku, the hero, is going to use that heritage to connect the heavens and the earth. So he gets up to Korin Tower and sees all.
And that's what Budo is.
Hmm.
I'm putting images into the Discord right now. The just to back up how explicitly Toriyama made this the world tree. The symbolic representation of the world tree, I just posted a couple different things. One of them is going to be the Neoplatonic spheres that the Hermetic world tree is based on. Each one of those has 4 spheres emanating downward, whereas the Kabbalistic world tree has, it ends up being 10 spheres as it breaks off into the different associations that have to do with it. But fundamentally, the chain itself is 4 spheres, right? You have the top, the absolute, the one. You've got the nous or the divine mind. You've got the world soul, and then you've got the sense world. And there's this emanation and transcendence with going down and up that world tree. Now that has been extrapolated out into different things. So, for instance, you've got Yggdrasil, and now I have a depiction of Yggdrasil where they do the exact same thing with the 4 spheres right here. Let me scroll down. No, not the Berserk one. There it is. Copy. So if you look at Yggdrasil, you also end up with the same thing, which is these realms, 4 stacked on top of each other, that represent the different phases of emanation from the divine one down into the worldly and then the underworld as well. I think Yggdrasil is a really, really good representation of that, and also the Christian myth lines up with the story around Yggdrasil in the exact same way with the world tree, with hanging on the world tree and like watering the world with the blood that's sacrificed and hanging from the world tree, right? Which is the Christ story as well, and the Christ being an archetype of the self, very similar to what the hero archetype does, especially in Dragon Ball. So I put all that there because I've been just sitting for years on this realization that I had about the design of Korin's Tower, because Korin's Tower is a series of spheres the exact same way. So I cut together a few things where you can see how this separates out. It's 4 pictures I'm pasting in here right now together. There it is. Copy and paste. So if you look, you can see here the top sphere, the middle sphere, the second, or not the middle, but the step down sphere that's in the sky. Then you've got the worldly sphere, which is where you see the top of the little bulge is there where it connects to the earth. And then the underworld, which we haven't gotten to yet, which we have to go to after this, which is Baba's Tower, which is, if you look at the top of Baba's inverted tower right there, it looks like the bottom side of Kami's tower where the Noibo has to connect to as well. And it's in the shape of a cross in the same way because it's essentially an extension of the same thing.
That's cool. I never looked at it like that.
It's crazy because it's not that obvious because they never show it all at once. You see escalations to certain points, but what I think is the most interesting about it is the top sphere you only see the bottom half of, right? And then at the very bottom where it's connecting to the earth, you only see the very top of it as if the world itself is a sphere. And then you also have this plus sign whenever they ultimately have to go to the underworld, where it looks like it would connect again, but it's also disconnected in the same way that Kami's is disconnected. So what Goku's doing here is he's getting onto that world tree and starting the process of ascending and descending it, because it's not just an ascent it's not just an ascent, it's an ascent and a descent on the world tree, which gives the hero the enlightenment that he needs to be able to defeat death. So this is the beginning of a story that pays off even further down when we get to Baba. So I just wanted to lay all that out. I know it's like a lot of information, but it gives context to why I'm using the language I'm using when I'm talking about, like, oh, this is what Goku's doing, ascending the spiritual tree. Like, there's even a shot of him whenever he hangs upside down, whenever he's tired and hangs by his tail, a couple of different times while he's climbing Korin's tower as well, which is very similar to certain other myths.
Yeah, yeah, the manga does that like right before he gets to the top. Oh wait, no, it looks like it's halfway actually.
But what is your input on that, Owl?
So I'd say the way that Baba's is disconnected from the others is great because it actually doesn't require the ancestral fatherly spirit to do it, but they are able
Right.
to find it, right? Because it is the feminine side of the Roshi.
Yeah, they use techne, right? Or technology to do it.
Mm. No, because they have to go to Baba to ask her where the ball is.
Right, but they have to get there, they have to fly in the
Oh
plane
yeah,
through the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
storm
yeah,
to the
yeah.
dark forest,
Yes,
right?
they
So
have to do
it's sort
that.
of like an ancestral thing that's grounded in the earth that Goku has inherited takes him higher, but they have to use then that's the masculine, right? And he has to use the feminine to reach Baba, who is also feminine,
That's
right?
what I was gonna say. My
Yeah,
point was that Baba is feminine here as the representation of the underworld, and this is how he's able to meet Gohan and all that. And that's what
right.
whenever you when you dig into the abyss, don't let the abyss turn you. If you go farther than that, you'll find the image of your father, and that's exactly what happens with Goku here. Is he digs further down into the underworld, and what does he find ultimately? After our main man, our huge boy, the Devil Man.
Of course. But,
My
yeah,
favorite.
I think that's all of that's extremely deliberate.
Yeah,
We
no.
should talk about Korin specifically and why it's Korin's tower and what is going on when Goku finally does get to Korin. That way we can resolve the Tao Pai Pai thing, right? Because everyone, I saw a thread on Twitter the other day talking about how it was just stupid. Essentially, like the idea of the black nimbus and it's all just a joke. You know, essentially the putting Tao Pai Pai on the Dark Nimbus and sending
Hmm.
him down was like a gag that didn't make any sense. Not a gag, not a joke.
Not a joke. Oh man. So yeah, we should talk about Korin. So let's see him.
So I want to hear your explanation of Korin because it really was you. One thing that you've done for me a lot with my analysis is just explain this is why this looks like this. This is why this is shaped like this, right?
Hmm.
Your explanation of Korin and his design really helped me kind of understand what was going on in this story.
Well, first of all, his eyes are closed, right? So he's going to be one of the iterations of the blind father, but he's a cat. Why would he be a cat? Now, what what are the inherent properties of cats? Let's talk about cats and monkeys, right? And so the the cat actually is part of the dragon structure. So the dragon structure is serpent, bird, and cat, right? And so we see a section of that dragon structure, part of Dragon Balls, right? So he's part of this chaos, the spiritual world, but he's a hermit. So he's been able to keep under control that animalistic part of him, and thus he's been able to gain enlightenment. And now the unassuming nature as well of a cat, and he's also like a fat cat, makes it even better. I don't remember what I said, Brock. What did I say?
Well, there is you're right in the sense that he's a hermit who separated himself from the physical world, so he's like this cat nature, right?
Yes.
The cat nature is one thing about cats is they have insane reflexes, and that's the
Mm.
first thing that
Oh,
Goku's having to
yes.
learn here, right?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Is the reflex of I think what super retreaded with Ultra Instinct
And
because
um, I think that Xavier would not agree with that. I think you're a
I would what?
you're a fan of Ultra Instinct, right? You don't think it's retreaded ground.
Um I mean, I definitely don't think it's perfect. Like I think it has its issues.
I think it's
But
cool.
I like the fact that it goes back to the movie Enter the Dragon with uh separating thought uh from fighting.
Hmm.
Well, and that goes back to what we're talking about with Korin, because Korin is the embodiment of that instinct, that reactionary instinct, and learning how to map that spirit onto himself is what Goku does here. And we'll see in a minute, like that's how he's able to solve the problem, right? Because he can't catch Korin. Korin's like, I have the sacred water, you can take a drink from it anytime if you can get it from me. And he can't catch Korin. Korin is basically being an ultra instinct right now, more or less,
Yeah.
because he's moving without thought, like we were saying there. He Oh yeah, cats are also lucky. And they're earthly too. So cats are earthly, and that's why he's here in Korin's tower, right? He's in that earthly sphere. It's just above Midgard, eh?
Yeah, it's the step before the actual
But he's still
one. This
connected
is
to
the
the earth,
noose.
is what I'm trying
So
to
you
say.
have the one, you have the noose, you have the earthly
Yeah.
sphere, and then you have the sense sphere. And so this is around the noose. And
Right.
the noose is more along the lines of separating your thoughts from your physical instantiation because they get tangled up, right?
Right. And so that is where we're getting, is Goku's just trying to be faster, like trained to be faster. And like just he's like, if I can just get faster every day, I'll do it. And so like 2 days goes by and he's just not made any progress. And
The
so
problem is his thoughts are in his way.
yeah. Well, his ethos too, right? He's not learning how to adopt and understand a spirit alien to his. And that's what
Hmm.
Korin's really trying to get him to understand, because if you get him to do that, then Goku can defeat Tao.
Right, because he's going to need to be able to embody what Tao uses to beat Tao because of what
Exactly.
Tao is.
Right, right. And so,
Um,
and
which means
yeah,
that Goku's self is in the way.
I do remember some of that now. Some of what I was saying. But but
But
yeah,
also the staff, right? Because Korin's staff is a claw,
yes.
which is to say that Goku is needing to learn something about the world from this experience, which is that nature is essentially red in tooth and claw. It's all about that acceptance of death that set up the situation in the first place, right?
Right, right. It's the nature of the world for things to die. And that's something that Goku has to understand on it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it
And
has
then
to be from a
also
beast.
another amazing thing about this, when he got hit in the chest by that beam from Tao Pai Pai, it burned off Roshi's symbol.
Oh
And so now he has
yeah.
a hole on his chest where there's an empty spot. And so he needs that emptiness so that he can fill it again with a new master. And Korin is that new master, right?
Right, and that is part of the emptiness. It's also one of the reasons, though, what we're talking about with Korin, how he's bestial and instinctual and things like that. It's why he doesn't give Goku a new gi to wear for that like represents him or whatever. All the
Yeah.
other ones that Goku trains under does, except for Popo.
Right, but this one, it's his skin, right?
Yeah,
It's his
yeah, exactly.
flesh is the symbol that he's wearing on his chest right now, which is what he's learning is that tooth and claw, right? That
Yes.
the physical mortality that he has to be able to. And like, look, even in this scene that we're seeing on screen right now, this is Roshi showing that he's mastered this pointing horizontal beam.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just him standing outside and pointing at the ocean for no reason.
And I
It's
don't
thematically
know if
part
this
of it.
is in the manga, but this is what we mean when we're saying that if it's not, then that was what we're saying when the filler lines up with the spirit of the story really, really well. In fact, so
Yeah.
much that it does add to it. Is it in the manga? Probably not.
Um, from what I see, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Of Roshi doing the Kamehameha.
But right, it
Well, it's not a
means,
Kamehameha this time, though, right? Roshi's showing that he has
yeah, he
mastered the same technique
the
that
Dodonpa.
the Dodonpa,
It's just a
but with
different
his
color.
pointing. Yeah, it's a more spiritually sound version of it, and it shows him doing that at the same time that Goku's learning that Roshi came up here.
And that he knows that
Oh
death
yeah,
is a
no,
reality.
they once the once the sky falls, they just like go to sleep, and then Goku thinks about stealing it, and then says, "Nah, I'm not gonna steal it."
Yeah, I really like this scene because it is perfectly in line with the themes of the show, right? He's learning. Master Roshi came up here and received this training sometime before, and then it cuts to Roshi outside doing the pointing beam attack, which is like this is what Goku needs to learn. And Roshi has already learned it and has mastered it to a degree that, would in a spiritual sense, would Tao Pai Pai defeat Roshi in this type of fight? No.
No, Roshi could
Because
crush him.
Roshi would destroy him.
Yeah, it's a great filler scene. I gotta say, great filler scene. It's the point too. Doesn't use the Kamehameha. There it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's what there's something special about this because
I just can't believe this went over my head the first time I was watching it. The
Yeah, I
pointing
know.
and the pillars.
I did.
It's like,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Every time we come back to this, Brock, we have more to say. Every time we
Yeah.
look back at this show, there's more to say.
Yeah, that's what's awesome about all this.
For sure. And so like here we see the staff that works on this, like the animation staff, they're not cognizant of some of this stuff. And the one of the things that Toriyama said in one of his interviews is like, I don't know why I write half the stuff I write. And that's like super honest. And a lot of artists, like Martin, for example, don't try not to, they veer away from that. They shun the muse, which is not what you should do. In fact, Toriyama basically embraced the muse fully. And I think that's why the story is so great, because he didn't plan any of it out. He just listened to the muse and created this story based on that. Not saying it doesn't have inspirations, obviously.
Felt good to write,
Yeah. And so Goku learns it took 3 years for Roshi to learn this lesson, which some people go their whole lives without learning, of course. But it also goes to show there's other characters that will climb Korin's tower later and also get the same knowledge, and it'll help them become stronger in spirit, but it won't necessarily make them unbeatable at the time, because what Goku's going up against.
Because this is just a step.
Yeah, this is just a step. So this is the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Goku gives his last effort. He like really tries hard. And Sensu beans. Time to go off on another 30-minute tangent.
I won't do it this time. I think the episode about Senzu beans is one of the best. Actually, the best got lost because the mic's fucked up. But
oh yeah, I know.
But the Senzu bean is all I'll say about it here is that it's called a hermit bean in the translation, and it's symbolic. One thing about it, it's not the only thing about it, but one thing about it is that it's symbolic of how little Goku actually needs. This is about teaching Goku to live on the minimum of his means and what he needs, to be right there on the edge of what I put. Like, he has to walk close to death in order to be able to embrace death and understand death. And part of that is not living in excess. And so a Senzu bean is sort of a symbol of this is the smallest amount that you need in the hermetic sense. And so whenever Goku's been up here and he's been starving himself and he hasn't eaten since he started climbing the tower, whenever Korin gives him this one bean, he's surprised because it's an alchemical thing. It's like internal alchemy happening to him in real time, realizing how little he actually needs.
It's a lot like the lambus bread of the Lord of the Rings, because they encounter that right after what? Right after Gandalf dies. And it's the same event, right? It's the same order of events, if you look at it. Gandalf dies, sacrifices himself to the Balrog. Boris sacrifices himself here. The heroes have to go on. And who do they encounter but spiritual forces that then give them the manna from heaven, which is what the sensu beans are, right? It's the manna from heaven. It's all that you need to sustentate yourself, basically. sustain is what I meant. Sustenate is not a word.
Get sustainated, kid.
And so, yeah, and so then we get to the night. No, then we have Korin threw down the ball, and so
Oh
Goku
yeah.
had to ascend it again. And that actually goes to show one it gets easier. Going from earthly to spiritual, once it's done, is easier. And it actually goes to show another principle of the world that exists in Dragon Ball and ours, is that the more something is done, the more it accrues in that nature. And so it becomes Goku's nature to ascend to these higher planes that he that he can conceive, let's say.
Well, also, it's really funny here. He says, "This is called the 4-star ball, and it's really important. Are you listening to me?" That's the reason he threw it down. You did not have a firm enough grasp of what you were supposed to learn from this ball,
Mm-hmm.
and what you were supposed to learn, you should have learned on your ascent up the tower. So, since you didn't, do it again. That's basically what he's telling him. You did not grasp fully what the ball represents. So obviously you need to take the step again.
And right, to go back to him gazing at the ball, it's him realizing that his own spirit is worthless if he can't redeem the spirit of the Father. And so he has to be sacrificial in that way, right? And it has to be no matter what it takes, as we'll get to what happens with Piccolo and why he says what he says with Piccolo, when he basically tells Piccolo, "You can kill Tien, I'm still going to kill you." Anyone that says Goku doesn't wield malice, and it doesn't make any sense.
No, the first thing he does after this arc is just go wield a lot of it. So, but yeah, fundamentally, we're getting to the point of the story with Korin now, which is that Goku he's not moving right. Like, his martial art here is insufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he is, I don't want to say he's too selfish, but there is too much of his self still present. And what Korin is teaching him to do is to move without getting in his own way. Now, it's something that Mr. Popo has him master later on so that he can actually interface with Kami. But right now, for the sake of being able to grapple with the concept of death to begin with, and being able to move in this sort of like, it's like conscious to unconscious way, ultimately what Goku has to do is to embody Korin completely. Which he's failing to do. He's just chasing him around, and he's always behind because of it. And we get a glimpse here at the sacred waters that he has, because these come back up.
It's very fate-like,
very
past,
pivotal
present,
moment.
and future.
Yeah.
And we saw that earlier. We kind of skipped over it, but when Goku first arrives, he opens all of them. And the first one, I think he sees stuff that already happened. The middle one, he looks and
You aren't
sees
reading my breathing.
Bulma. And then the third one, he sees Baba, which is wild because, like we said earlier, Toriyama really doesn't plan out stuff, but I think that one was planned out. I'm not sure. It might not be in the manga.
But anyway,
none of this is like they just go to sleep. They extended a lot of this.
Oh no, we were talking about earlier when he first gets there. Does he not look in the jars?
I don't.
He looks in the jar, but like it's just water. Like there's no reflection or anything.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the pivotal thing though in this time he looks in it is there's the thing about breathing. He sees them working out, and I think it's Roshi or maybe the person on the TV. I can't remember who's saying it. They're saying, "You're not reading my moves. You're not reading my breathing." Now, breathing is important for a lot of different reasons. Like, breath is a symbolic concept
of spirit.
It's an animating spirit.
Yeah.
But one thing to note is, up at this height, one of the reasons that Goku was getting tired quickly when he first got up here is because the air is much thinner. And Korin tells him that he's using his breath inefficiently. And what he has to do here is he has to adjust to the elevation and use his breath or his spirit properly, efficiently. And the only way that you figure out to do it eventually is to read Korin's breathing and imitate his breathing rather than his actions.
And to know one's enemy is to know oneself. And so then we get Goku's triumphant day, wearing the gi of the beast.
The flesh gi.
pretty
One
sick.
one cool thing I will say, when Goku first came up here, in the manga, is the first thing Goku did was insult how small
Yeah,
Karin is, and
Mm-hmm.
it pretty much plays out like a Luke and Yoda moment.
it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
does. He doesn't show him the proper reverence or respect.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, I'm trying to find the martial arts master." He's like, "That's me." He's like, "What? That's you?"
And so here he tickles him, right? He doesn't use martial arts to actually win this challenge, right?
But he does.
But he does. He
So he
uses the
does what
way.
Korin did to him.
Mm-hmm.
Korin made him drop the 4-star ball. He pitched it down and made him go chase it off. So Goku, in imitating Korin's breathing, makes Korin drop his staff and beats Korin the same way that Korin beat him earlier. And also he does it through making him laugh. He actually like tickles him and
Mm-hmm.
distracts him,
Yeah,
which
that's
is a
what I
very
mean.
Buddhist idea.
It is the unexpected, right? It's the knowing that Korin isn't expecting this. It will be that will shake his, not like break his spirit, but it'll stun him, right? Long enough for him
Yeah.
to just drop his staff, and so then he's able to get
Yeah.
the super spirit water, which is just ordinary water.
Yep.
So in
Which is
very,
essentially he has learned his lesson to breathe like Korin.
but I would say because of the water being representative of gaining that knowledge, it actually is divine.
It is, yeah.
Not everyone can drink that water.
It's a symbol.
Yeah, it's a symbol.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you, something we haven't actually seen is a water source up here, right? We saw like Korin washing the dishes, but we didn't see Goku drinking anything. We saw the jars of water, but no one's like had anything to drink. Goku has the bean, right? And that's it. And so like
Mhm.
the only water up here is the divine water. And who's to say it didn't transubstantiate into something divine in that way? And it does refresh Goku here. So
Now, something amazing about this is part one of the water story because Goku does have to come back here, go
mhm,
into the water pots that he saw before,
yes.
and find the magical water that gives him ego death and
Right.
actually does physically
Well,
give him more strength. Later
drinkable
on.
water and then
Yeah.
non-drinkable water, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's what we're getting at. It's, I also don't like the criticism, and Xavier, I don't know if you've heard this, people saying that like Goku gets powered up by the super divine water. It's just a plot hole or whatever. It's just like so Goku can get more powerful.
I think people just fail to see that it's an inversion, uh, and that's sort of the whole point.
Mm-hmm. And it is also down. I mean, it is down below Korin's tower because Korin looks down at them when he's telling them like go here, whatever, right? To Yajirobe, and then we also would have to talk about Yajirobe. So let's not go that far. Just briefly touching on
Yeah.
the super divine.
Yeah. It is very meaningful, and nothing about that is filler. Nothing about that coming back here and doing that is diminished by the fact that this happened. This is a microcosm of what that fundamentally is, because the reason he does it is the same reason he does this, and it's sort of like scaling it up from personal to cosmic. This is Goku's
Yes.
personal internal growth, and the next time he does it, he comes back and he's doing it to become the hero of the world, essentially.
Well, he has to not just redeem the earthly father, because that's what
Yeah.
this one's about. He has to redeem the spiritual father, because
Yes.
who is Goku, or who is Piccolo intrinsically tied to but Roshi?
Right. But
All right, so
just to say, like, that's not just a reiteration of this, but this is a microcosm of that.
yes, it grows into it like a tree. So the showdown comes back, you know. Tao Pai Pai comes here. He's like, "Where's Goku?" All this. And so Goku comes back. Now, I will ask, they don't do the whole black nimbus in the manga, do they? Do you know, Xavier? Oh, what is happening?
Internet gave out.
All right,
Oh,
all right. We're back.
lost you
We're
for a
back.
second there.
Yeah, we're back. Did you hear what I said? I said, does the manga use the Black Nimbus?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Are we
No.
live right now?
Yeah, we should be.
There.
Yeah, we're back. I
Let's
just heard
see.
myself say, yeah, we're back. So yeah, we're live.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was saying, interesting that they don't do that. So Goku and Tao now face off. Goku is now aware of not only that there's death in the world, but how to map other spirits onto himself, right? And so he's gonna really adopt some malice from this fight, just through what has to happen, the necessity of it. So they fight.
Could you share your screen?
Oh, I see. Well, good thing it's on the stream. It was just Discord that went out, I think,
Yeah, Discord
Yeah.
just.
because everything else was
oh, there we
everything
go.
else is fine.
I stopped watching and then I rejoined watching and it's working again, I think.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm just sharing with you guys the actual episode. You don't need to see yourselves do nothing. Anyway, so they fight, and he learns that Goku climbed the tower, and so he decides to climb the tower. Oh my gosh. This time I'm fighting for you. So he uses the Dodonpa, he points at Goku, says there's death in the world, and this is coming for you and everyone, and Goku is able to catch it. He's able to
He can
hold
grasp
it
it
in
now.
his hands. Yeah, exactly. So I was getting at.
Still hurts though.
I mean, yeah, it's never gonna get easier. Like, yeah, everyone will die. That does suck. Suffering and death are part of life. That does suck.
He just catches it with his hands.
Yeah. But that's important. When
And of
Goku
course
does
he's like,
that,
it's
Yeah.
impossible.
it's showing that he can wrap his grasp
And then-
around that thing, right?
And then Goku just like, hey man, it's just fair, bro. My Kamehameha didn't work against you. Your
Mm-hmm.
attack doesn't work against me. Bro just pulls out a pirate sword.
Yep. So
Same sword the Beastman had, same sword
yes,
Yamcha had.
it is, and it is the kind of the embodiment of that unsophisticated malice, right? And that's what Tao Pai Pai is resorting to now that his mode of being, his death mode of being, and his spiritual attack, his spiritual horizontal pillar, let's say. Once those have failed, yeah, he has to resort to this. But it's already a sign that he's basically lost. We kind of know that. Yes, and then here, of course. So the heritage of one's ancestry is going to be able to defeat the malice of the past, the barbarity of the past, right? Because
Well, I think the wisdom passed down through generations and through ancestry is the thing that defeats the fact of death happening.
Mm-hmm. And so Goku prevents it from happening. Then he says
It's also great because it's his sword breaking on a microcosm of the Axis Mundi they're fighting next to. Like Goku's wielding it in his hand,
but it's also
as a representation of that same thing.
So here is, I think, where we first get the intonation that he's starting to adopt that malice. I'm never satisfied until I beat bad guys like you with my own two hands.
So he's like, how dare you mock me?
And so what does he do? He kicks this rock at Upa, right? The malice extends all the way to innocence. Even like little kids die. Everyone dies. And so Goku, realizing this, has to stop that from killing Upa. And it's kind of a way that we see villains often interact with the heroes. They take advantage of that, and that's something. It's a trope, but it makes sense here because even though Goku can stand up to death, Upa has not learned that wisdom. Upa hasn't gone through that transformation, but Goku has to protect him, obviously. And this is where that he climbs up to the top. And I'll let Brock go ahead and talk about the Black Nimbus.
It's Black Nimbus is pretty funny. I don't know if at this point in the story we've been introduced to the fact that the Nimbus was from Korin. But we mentioned earlier the Nimbus being, when we were talking on the other recording, being representative of the Tao or the way, right?
Yes.
That if you're pure of heart, your intuitions are going to lead you towards the right thing. It's I think of one thing that the longer I spend with Elden Ring, the more I see Torrent as the Nimbus, as this thing that's handed down to you that you can ride, and like it is like a vehicle towards the right thing
Between
by
the
the guidance
earths
of
and the
grace.
heavens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like that. And so what happens here is, in spirit, Tao Pai Pai is oriented down, not up, meaning he wants to drag other people down and destroy instead of lift people up and create. And so he goes up to Korin, basically being like, "Hey, make me stronger." Right now, what Korin does is he
Oh,
enlightens
also Goku
people
thinks
to their
about
way.
this. Goku thinks about this during this night right here. Forgot about this part. There it is.
Oh yeah.
Of course, this is what Goku dreams about.
Yeah, this part's filler.
Yeah. But like I said, and like I've been trying to iterate, I think the filler is good. I know it's a controversial take, but I think the filler is good.
In Dragon Ball somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Z, definitely in Z, later versions of Z, it's not mythological. It may be good, entertaining, but like, as in capital G good, like.
Do you want to explicate what it is about this sequence here that resonates with Goku dreaming and resting while he just allows Tao Pai Pai to run up and do his thing?
You still can't. Wait, hold on. What does he say? I will in a second. You still can't live without your PP or balls.
You can't. You can still live without your PP or balls.
Oh gosh. All right, so he's gone through this journey and finding out that death is real and all of that. And so the way it's presented also in the show is that Bulma, his visions of Bulma also help him realize what he's supposed to do with Korin. Like Korin also helps him along the way. He keeps saying that same thing, like, "You're not reading my breathing," and Goku just ignores it for the first part of it. But
then he sees Bulma.
Then he sees Bulma, right? And Bulma is the archetypal feminine. She is the one that brings consciousness to the masculine figures around her, right? I mean, even her relationship with Roshi more or less is like that. I mean, later on, it eventually becomes she's the dominant one in the relationship, right? As in, she's the one that will, like, he'll perv on her, sure, but like she'll slap him and stuff like that, and like she kind of gets to the point where she can deal with it in the way that she can. But it's always portrayed as Roshi bad, Roshi man bad. But the idea that she's bringing this self-consciousness and awareness to the masculine around her is that same thing. And so Goku's dreaming about this because that chaos that he just entered in and undergone was that cycle that all began with Bulma's panties.
We're still tying back to Bulma's panties. Yeah, even in these scenes, it keeps flashing back to it.
But that's because, right, if Bulma is the unknown world in which Goku interacts with first, then she is, and she kind of symbolically does that for a lot of other characters, is like Yamcha, Roshi, Vegeta, even later on. So like when we see that happen over and over, you can see that that's the embodiment that she's portraying. And so Goku thinks about the first time, right? And you know, that's something, the rumination of past triumphs and things is something that can be beneficial and helpful, and something that Goku does here to kind of distance himself from the passions at hand, right? Because like we saw earlier, he was basically wanting to beat up Tao. And in the manga, he just does. He just basically kills Tao, right? And so when that happens, Goku has to kind of separate himself from that malice and not get overcome by it. And what is one of the best ways to do that? But participating in the holy communion that is stepping into that unknown world and creating habitable order out of it. That's my explication.
I think it's a good way of putting it, because she shows up all the time throughout Dragon Ball as sort of this like either foreshadowing or just a symbol of like, hey, new chaos is being integrated now. And this is how you can do it. And she does it over and over. One of my favorite parts is whenever they go down underneath the ocean in that filler arc, and she does it like in a cosmic sense and gets the jewel in her crotch and all that crazy stuff.
That's not filler, I don't think.
I think part of it is.
Let's
least.
ask our expert here, Xavier. Do you know if the General Blue arc, how much of that is filler?
I'm not sure. I would have to go through the anime.
I know
See.
at least some of it is. There's the arc of them going underneath the ocean. They fight the robot with the skull, and then they eventually end up in that cave that has the 3 treasure chests and the statue.
That's got to be in the manga, though. That's got to be in the manga.
Like, this scene is not in the manga.
No, we know that. Let me show you the scene we're talking about real quick. This one. When Blue like captures them down here and all this. Oh, no, that was loud.
I think this part is in it. Yeah.
And the statue, the Shiva-like statue. I guess it would be more like
I'm not sure if this is in it.
This statue's not in it? Oh, I just missed it.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
you
sure.
told me when we recorded
might be.
before that it wasn't.
This? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, interesting. But the chests are. How do they get the Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, anyways,
Regardless, that's where Bulma exists as that constantly after the first season, where she sort of is like this like arbiter of integrating chaos.
Yeah, the micro band as well, don't forget.
Yeah. But anyway, going towards this and Tao Pai Pai going up here, kind of what I was saying is that like he's coming up here because he thinks that the training he's going to get from Korin is going to make him physically stronger, right? Which he's wrong. Korin is going to give him tools to get out of his own way to achieve his ends effortlessly. And so the way he does it is he gives him his own Nimbus. But that Nimbus, because he's the one riding it specifically, that Nimbus leads him straight down into the ground because his mode of being is completely animated by destruction and death. In the same way that like if you're purely good and you ride the Nimbus, it leads you up towards love and light and towards your goals and all of that. So the Black Nimbus to me is an extension of what Korin does for people. It's a funny way for him to tell him like, oh, you wanted me to maximize you. Here you go.
Right. It's almost a be careful what you wish for kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I like that. I think that also goes into what we were saying about his as in Korin, the way Korin operates more or less, right? He doesn't even fight back to Tao, right? Like Tao picks him up by the throat and he's like, if you kill me, you won't be able to get the sacred water, all this. But we know that Korin's stronger than Tao, right? But that's not the mode of being that he's adopting. As a spiritual father, he will point out that which is lacking in these the people he interacts with, which is like hardly any because he's so high up. But the interaction there is what Brock was saying. It is going to be in a maximization of whatever you're bringing into it, almost like the cave on Dagobah, right? When Yoda tells Luke not to bring his lightsaber into the cave, and he does anyways. And then what does he find in there? Is Darth Vader. Fights Darth Vader, and turns out it was Luke the whole time. It's a good scene. And so it's like that. And so Tao Pai Pai brings malice here, and so he becomes even more malicious, maximized.
And he brings it onto himself by riding malice into the ground.
And that's what it does to you, yeah. And so he rides it into the ground. Here he is.
And he didn't learn his lesson, obviously, because now in this fight, he's killed by his own malice.
He throws it and then gets exploded by it. Oh, yeah, this is where Goku just tanks and is like, I don't care because I've already mapped your spirit onto me. And that's something Goku does all the time, actually. Goku's pretty known for that. Like, I'll just tank this hit. Like
yeah, this is where Goku learns to do that.
Yeah.
And it becomes an aspect of what it means to be a Saiyan later on. But this is the first incarnation of like, I'm just going to let you beat me until I know all your moves, and then I'm going to just beat you up.
Yep. Because once I know you, I know how to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the techniques, I would say, that people are like, Goku doesn't come up with any of his own techniques. Like, they're there. It's just not as explicit, let's say, as like the Kamehameha wave.
Well, Goku's techniques are more foundational than specified, right?
Right.
Like Goku's techniques are mode of being based things rather than like I came up with this new like even the rock paper scissors technique, I think he says he got it from his father.
Yeah,
his
grandfather taught him, yeah. Which is excellent because fathers teach their sons how to play.
Yep. But yeah, Goku doesn't come up with names for new techniques and stuff like that because what his move is how he is.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So then Tao decides to throw a grenade, as we know. You fell for it. He wasn't really sorry. And that's one thing, too. He tries to change his mode of being to be a repentant one, to throw Goku off guard. But we already know that Goku can map other spirits to himself. So he sees right through it and uses his own malice to kill him. Goku did not have to kick that grenade at him. Just saying.
Well, they do it different in the manga.
Oh, really?
In the manga, Goku does not intentionally kick the grenade at Tao Pai Pai.
Can you post that page?
Yeah.
I might be able to pull it up.
Goku just kicks it out of instinct, and then he realizes that Tao Pai Pai's in the air.
Oh, same thing then, because we're all talking about instinct and kind of operating without thinking. So even if it isn't like I'm literally,
it's just made even more blatant.
Yeah,
it's more blatant in the anime, yeah, but it is still like he does kick it up.
Yeah.
That's clear. He could have kicked it straight, kicked it into the trees, whatever. But my point is in saying that is that Goku has learned this ability to map spirits onto himself, but he hasn't learned how to distinguish that from like involving his own being with it. Like beating, and this is something he'll do later, is being able to defeat enemies without adopting their own strategies or mode of beings or whatever. And this is something that he, like I was saying, alluding to earlier, is when he tells King Piccolo that you can go ahead and kill Tien, I'm gonna kill you anyways, right? That like, adult Goku would never say something like that, right? So another reason to say Goku has a lot of growth as well. But here he has not yet distinguished how to keep the other modes of being from being part of himself, and so he becomes malicious here, and he stays malicious for a little bit through the story after this.
Yeah, after this, then it's just a campaign of terror of Goku going and killing as many Red Ribbon Army guys as he can.
It is a campaign of terror. But that brings
so
us
much so that by the time the rest of the gang gets there, they're like, "What? Like Roshi looks like he's a witness of murder."
Yeah, they're terrified.
Goku literally like shows up to the place and says, "Okay, have some fun."
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says to I think it's in the next page that you posted here. He says that he's gonna go beat up all those Red Ribbon Army guys, something like that.
Yeah, he doesn't. The first thing he says is, at least in the show, is, "I'm gonna go beat them all up." And
Yeah,
then he's like, "And well, I have to go there because the Dragon Balls are there anyway." But his first intuition in the anime is like, "All right, time to go to beat everybody up now."
yeah, and I think that his grasp of a lot of the ideas that are in this arc make him a terrifying person, right? Because he's integrated the monster into himself, the proverbial monster, let's say.
Yeah.
There are 2 balls over here, and then he says, which means the other one's collecting Dragon Balls, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, here's where he's where he says it. Must be those Red Ribbon guys. Yeah, and so he goes on a killing spree, and that's why the sins of the father echo through the son, and that's why Gohan has to beat Cell. Just saying, but
And
it
yeah,
all
well,
makes
this
sense.
fundamentally always is going to end up with Baba, right? The end of this,
Oh
because the
yeah,
end of this arc is not beating the Red Ribbon Army, because Goku loses a lot that he has to gain back at the end of that, and that's how they resolve this story, is going to Baba immediately afterwards.
right, exactly, and learning that the abyss, you don't necessarily become the monsters you're fighting
Hmm.
if you can anchor yourself to something solid like the spirit of the father. And so, right, that's the explanation here, because he it gets kind of dark, honestly, if you look at it from the Red Ribbon perspective, because
Yeah.
they're just regular soldiers, dude. Goku's just murdering all of them.
We're
Oh my
just
god!
men.
Exactly. It's just indiscriminate though. So many explosions, so many building collapses, like. And then if you like watch it, you can see like some of the guys take hits that you're like, that guy's dead. Like that guy's just dead.
Yeah. Well, the funniest part of it to me is, like, immediately the first thing he does whenever he finally sees another Red Ribbon guy is a guy in a helicopter, and he just like flies through the helicopter and kills the guy on the spot. He's just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
Doesn't ask
nukes
any
him.
question, just kills him. The guy is terrified too. He's running away from Goku. When that happens, he's running away. Oh gosh. So yeah, Goku's a terrifying person now that he's climbed Korin's tower, and that was a good discussion about Korin's tower. Do we want to? I'll give us some minutes to discuss our concluding thoughts. I guess I can start. So, concluding thoughts: the presentation of the Axis Mundi, the upper branch of the spirituality and the horizontal, is so poignant that it makes the story flow really succinctly. And so we get here, we have this horizontal earthly, and we see the earthly father, and we have all this earthly stuff. The tiger is earthly, right? The volcano is earthly. And then we have to ascend to a higher realm of spirituality. And so that's what Goku has to do by climbing this tower that was built by generations and generations of these people in the West, the Western tradition here. And I'm not meaning like European, I mean literally this is Goku goes west. But he climbs all the way to the top, right? And he interacts with the upper part of the spiritual. He's not at the point of ultimate suffering. That's not what's happening right now. That's kind of at the bottom where the horizontal meets, but he is at the top of the spiritual ladder, and he can see down below, and he can see what the earth is really like, and that's what he does when he understands that death is in the world, and then he learns from Korin to map other spirits onto himself, and becomes this thing. I'm talking like he's a monster. Becomes like a monster basically because he's unstoppable, right? He learns the lessons that allow him to understand alien things. It's a process which lets him understand chaos better than what he previously had. And as the hero who fights chaos, that's an invaluable tool. And so he learns that he easily defeats Tao, but he is a little corrupted by that process. He is a little corrupted by being at the Axis Mundi, right? being at the intersection between the earthly and the heavenly, and where that the death of the earthly father occurred. He does get a little twinge of corruption from that, and so then he carries on to do that. But those are my thoughts. Whoever wants to go next, go ahead.
I'll say, uh, this is it's cool seeing Goku just grow as a martial artist, which there's this Bruce Lee clip where he says being a martial artist is being able to truly accept yourself, and if you and in order to really accept yourself, you also really have to accept your past and your roots,
Mm.
and that's sort of what this whole arc is about, especially when it and that's why I think this arc concludes at the end of the Baba stuff, when he's able to see his father again, because it uh it uh it keeps to the same themes that we were talking about, which is like father figures and uh, stuff of that nature, and being able to uh, truly be uh, basically being able to be himself, uh, instinctually.
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. You talk about your roots, right? Because we're talking about this place being the axis mundi in the world tree, and
Yeah,
being in touch with your roots really, it's associated with death. Elden Ring, I'm a big fan of, and a part of Elden Ring's whole axis mundi thing, because the Erd tree is the axis mundi in Elden Ring, has to do with death feeding the tree, and what you do about death, and how you grapple with the existence of death and how you overcome death. It's all a story about beating death, right? And this is that first, to me, this part is about that first step of defeating death. And the number one thing that Goku needs to be able to integrate into himself, that he's starting to do now, is that it's seeing where those roots lie, and some of them lie in death, and in the tooth and claw, in the way that the world really is. So it's a necessary step for him to integrate, like, my father's died. What happened to Goku's grandfather? That's something he's gonna have to confront after this, right? And he's not ready yet, but this is a step for him to get there. Um, which we ultimately are going to arrive at. But I think that's a good way of putting it, because how you move in the world, considering that's what martial arts really are a representative of, Goku can't move properly in the world if he can't reconcile his relationship to that death and to his own earthly father. And so this is all a setup for him to be able to reconcile it for himself, and he's doing it through doing it for Upa, and bringing back Bora. And so it's
yeah,
this is how he learns that, and the way the Dragon Ball shows it as martial arts, right? It's like, why we said earlier that, like, Super does a retread on this, is that ultimately what gets Goku to the point that he can even differentiate this the way that he does is being unconscious, integrating some of that unconsciousness or death into his movements by breathing the same as Korin even when he's asleep,
yeah.
right? And so this is a step in that martial arts journey, insofar as that's Goku needs to integrate the way that he acts, or integrate these things into the way that he acts. Now,
Yeah,
you know,
and also just pushing the fact even further that martial arts is a lifestyle, just like how Mr. Miyagi says to Daniel, he says, karate is for whole life.
mhm.
So it's just reinforcing that same sort of theme here.
To walk the
Yeah,
way, right?
Yeah.
the way, right?
Look at this. Are you some sort of monster? As I was saying, like, yeah, it really makes Goku terrifying.
And it's funny because Goku's literally supposed to be a pure-hearted demon, like this whole time. He's meant to be in the very like start of the manga, like Goku like knows what yokai are because like Gohan taught him about them, and Toriyama like really alludes to Goku himself being a yokai.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I don't think the science fiction aspects of the story are so dissimilar from the spiritual aspects. So the
Yeah,
fact that
yeah.
Goku's an alien that turns into that, I think that also goes into
The heavens.
the heaven.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah, yeah,
that
it just reinforces the same ideas.
yeah. And so
It also gets me excited to talk about Z. Our
oh,
podcast. We've
yes.
done most of Dragon Ball. We have not done this treatment to Z.
We talk about
I
solution oriented. Toriyama's
I
like, all
know.
right, here's solutions for the hardest questions humanity has ever had. Here you go.
Yeah.
I'll just
I
make them
know
up on the spot.
I know you guys said that you guys aren't too hyped for a Daima, but with all like the demon and the mythology stuff, I think Daima's gonna be really exciting.
We
We'll see.
may we may see.
And it's gonna bring like some of these themes back.
I've never not watched Dragon Ball. You see,
I don't
I
know
don't
anything
like
about
Super,
Daima.
but I've
I
seen it
watched
all.
one trailer.
I haven't seen anything for it, so. But I've never not watched. I've seen all Dragon Ball, so except no, I've seen it all. Even GT. Go
Especially
Para.
GT.
Yeah, we watch GT every day. Anyways, sounds like a good place to wrap up then. Thanks everyone for watching the show. We have at least one viewer said Return of the Goats in chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Now we're gonna wrap up here. So if you liked what you saw, please give us a like and subscribe. We don't have a regular schedule yet, but we're gonna try and get a regular schedule going again. I want to continue doing this. Obviously, it's very enjoyable. Anyhow, we thank our guest Xavier. Thank you for coming. Appreciate
Hey,
it.
thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. None at all. It was our pleasure to have someone to talk to that has some of this background. Like I didn't know how much Bruce Lee really played into it. So I appreciate
Yeah.
those additions. But
Yeah, and it's just really interesting to hear your guys' side too, because I like it, seeing like how much this arc focuses on trees, pillars, and just growth in general. Like I always sort of like knew those things, but I never really like connected the dots like you guys did here.
yeah, we appreciate that. That's the kind of the message we're trying to get out when we're putting our shows out. But
Yeah, we might troll
Yeah.
a bit, but ultimately, I just wish that people would have more open form conversations about
yes, that's what it
Dragon
is.
Ball instead of just saying it's just martial arts. It's like, I know, okay? Everything's martial arts.
Yeah.
It's true. It's the way.
Yeah.
We thank everyone who watched. We thank our guest, Brock. Thank you for being my co-host. Now, I have been on your host on the left, Owl.
And I've been your host on the right, Brock.
We hope you guys have a good rest of your evening.